She was standing in the middle of her corner office, holding her phone with that cold, composed look. She always wore like armor when the message came through to my screen. I stared at it for 30 seconds without moving. A photograph. Her, in a white dress at someone's wedding, laughing with her head thrown back, completely radiant, completely alive, minus and underneath it. 5 words she clearly meant to send to someone else. This is what you lost. I had not spoken to Victoria Hale in 4 months. Not since the day she called me into that same glass-walled office and told me, without flinching, that she was promoting someone else to VP of Strategy, minus someone she had been seeing quietly for 3 weeks. I had spent 2 years building that department from 18 employees to 63. I had skipped funerals. I had missed my sister's graduation. I had eaten dinner at my desk so many nights that the cleaning staff knew my order by heart. And in under 10 minutes, she had handed everything I built to a man named Derek, who wore cufflinks to casual Fridays, and had never closed a deal above 6 figures in his life. If you believe that loyalty and hard work should never be thrown away for someone's personal gain, hit that like button and subscribe. This story is for every person who gave everything and still walked away with nothing. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. My name is Ethan Cole. I am 34 years old. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, in a 2-bedroom house that always smelled faintly of motor oil because my father ran a small auto repair shop out of the garage. We were not poor, but we were never comfortable either. And I learned early that the only way out of ordinary was through outworking everyone around you. That belief followed me through college, through my first job at a small marketing consultancy in Cincinnati, and finally to Meridian Group, the mid-sized investment advisory firm based in Chicago, where I would spend the most important and most devastating years of my professional life. I joined Meridian when I was 28. Victoria was already there, minus she had been with the firm for 6 years and had risen to chief executive officer at 31, which the industry considered remarkable. She was sharp in a way that felt almost unfair. She could read a room, a balance sheet, and a person all at the same time and synthesize all 3 into a single decision within moments. I admired her from the day I met her. I want to be honest about that. Whatever happened later, I never once pretended she was not exceptional at her work. Because she was. What I did not understand then, and would not understand for years, was that admiring someone and trusting them are 2 entirely different things. You can watch someone perform brilliantly and still know nothing about their character. That distinction cost me more than I can put into a clean sentence. The first 2 years at Meridian were the best of my career. I rebuilt the strategy division almost from scratch, brought in 3 major institutional clients, and developed a framework for risk modeling that the firm eventually patented. Victoria praised my work in quarterly reviews, cited my division in board presentations, and once Minus during a rooftop dinner with senior partners, Minus introduced me to a group of investors as the most underrated mind in the building. I remember how that felt. I remember being proud in a way that felt clean, earned, uncomplicated. And then, somewhere in the 3rd year, things began to shift in ways I could not name at first. Victoria became harder to reach. Meetings I was included in before would happen without me. Projects I had originated would be reassigned quietly, without explanation. I told myself she was busy. I told myself I was being sensitive. I told myself that leaders go through cycles and this was just one of them. What I did not know, minus what nobody told me, minus was that Derek Marsh had arrived. He joined as a senior consultant in the fall, and within 6 weeks he was somehow attending every internal leadership dinner. He was good-looking in a deliberate, rehearsed way, and he laughed at everything. Victoria said with the kind of enthusiasm that reads as admiration from a distance, but feels hollow up close. I noticed him the way you notice a weather change, minus not alarmed, just aware. I had no reason yet to connect him to the growing silence around me. The day Victoria called me into her office was a Tuesday in February. It was snowing outside, the fat, slow kind of snow that makes Chicago look like a painting. And I remember thinking, walking down that hallway, that she was finally going to discuss the VP position. I had been told informally, through a senior partner named Gerald, that my name was the only one being seriously considered. I had already started thinking about what changes I would make, who I would mentor, which inefficiencies I would finally be able to address with real authority. She told me in less than 10 minutes. Derek had been selected. The official reason was that the board wanted someone with a broader external network. She said it calmly and professionally, looking at me with an expression that was carefully neutral in the way that only people who have rehearsed it can manage. She thanked me for my contributions. She said she hoped I would continue to thrive in my current role. She did not ask how I felt. She did not leave space for it. I walked back to my desk, sat down, and stared at my monitor for 20 minutes without touching anything. Then I went to the men's room, ran cold water over my wrists, the way my mother taught me when I was a kid and couldn't calm down, and went back to work, because that is what I did. That is what I had always done. I stayed 4 more months. I told myself I was staying because leaving out of emotion was unprofessional. The real reason, if I am honest, was that I did not know where else to go. Meridian had been my entire world for 6 years. I had let everything else minus friendships, relationships, hobbies, the small breathing spaces that make a life feel like a life minus compress, down to almost nothing in service of that job. Leaving felt less like walking out a door and more like stepping off a ledge. During those 4 months, Derek strutted through the department I had built with the casual confidence of someone who had inherited a house and immediately started redecorating. He moved people around without consulting anyone who had institutional knowledge. He killed the risk modeling project in its pilot phase because he found the documentation too complex. He introduced a new performance review system that rewarded visibility over results, which meant that people who sent long emails and sat in on every optional call began outpacing people who quietly did exceptional work. The culture I had spent years building shifted in ways that made me feel like a stranger in my own office. And through all of it, Victoria said nothing. She watched it happen, and she said nothing. I resigned on a Thursday morning in June. I kept the letter short and professional. I thanked her for the opportunity. I did not say what I actually felt, because saying it would have changed nothing, and I was too tired for performances that served no purpose. She replied with a 2-line email wishing me well. I moved back to Columbus. I stayed in my childhood bedroom for 6 weeks, which is a particular kind of humbling that I do not recommend to anyone who has spent 6 years believing they were on the way to something significant. My mother made soup. My father did not ask many questions, which was its own form of love. I applied for jobs. I got through several rounds of interviews at 2 different firms before being passed over both times. I started consulting independently, small clients, modest projects, nothing like what I had been doing, but enough to keep moving. I was sitting at my kitchen table on a quiet Wednesday afternoon, working through a financial model for a family-owned distribution company in Dayton, when my phone buzzed. The number was Victoria's. I knew it before I even looked. The way you know certain things in your body before your mind catches up. And there it was, minus the photograph, and those 5 words beneath it. I sat with it for a long time. The photograph itself told a story I could read easily. She looked happy in it, genuinely happy, the kind that shows up in the eyes rather than just the mouth. But the caption, minus those 5 specific words, sent to my number by mistake, minus told a different story. One about how she thought about me, one about what she imagined I had lost, and what she imagined she still had. I thought about not responding. I thought about blocking the number and moving on. I thought about a dozen things in the span of about 2 minutes, and then I typed my response. It was 3 sentences. I told her the photograph was clearly sent to me by mistake, and that I hoped she would resend it to whoever was meant to receive it. I told her I genuinely hoped she was happy, because life was too short for bitterness, and I had enough of my own work to do. And then I said one last thing, minus that the thing I had lost was a job, and that what I had found, slowly and quietly, and on my own terms, was myself. I sent it before I could rethink it. She did not reply, not that day, and not for several weeks. I went back to my model and finished it by evening, and that night I made dinner and called my sister and watched a documentary about ocean ecosystems until I fell asleep on the couch. And in all of that, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Something like peace. What I did not expect was what came next, minus though. In truth, life rarely announces its turning points in advance. A month after that exchange, I received a call from a man named Robert Callahan, a managing partner at a boutique investment strategy firm in Cincinnati. He had seen my independent consulting work, specifically a risk analysis I had prepared for one of his former colleagues, and he wanted to meet. I drove up on a Tuesday and sat across from him in a corner office, not unlike Victoria's, except this one had framed photographs of his kids on every surface and a bowl of peanut butter candies on the desk that he kept offering me every few minutes without embarrassment. He offered me a role that was, by every measurable standard, more significant than the VP position I had been passed over for. At Meridian, lead partner for strategy development, equity stake, a team I would build from scratch my way. He said he was looking for someone who understood that the best results come from people who are trusted, rather than managed, and that what he had seen in my independent work suggested that was exactly how I thought. I said, yes. I drove home with the windows down even though it was October and the air had that cold, clean edge that Ohio gets in the fall, and I let myself feel it fully minus the chill, the possibility, the particular satisfaction of something that arrives. Not because you fought for it in the wrong place, but because you finally stopped fighting and let your actual work speak. I have been at Callahan Strategic for 14 months now. The team we have built is small and deliberate and extraordinarily good. I sleep 7 hours a night. I have started cooking again, something I had completely abandoned during the Meridian years. I play basketball on Sunday mornings with a group of men I met through my neighbor, and it is the most uncomplicated 2 hours of my week. I call my parents every Sunday evening. These things sound small, and I know they sound small. But they are not small. They are the shape of a life that actually belongs to me. I think about Victoria sometimes, not with bitterness, or at least not often. I think about what it costs a person to be so defended, so practiced at neutrality, that even their mistakes get framed as power moves. That caption she sent me minus this is what you lost, minus I believe she meant it as a wound. But what it gave me, in the end, was clarity. Because it told me clearly how she had always seen our relationship minus as a transaction, as a competition, as something with a score. And knowing that, truly knowing it, meant I could finally stop grieving something that had never been what I thought it was. The job I lost was not the thing I lost. The thing I lost was time. 6 years of believing that if I worked hard enough in the right building for the right person, something real would be returned to me. That lesson was expensive, and I paid for it in full, and I do not intend to forget it. If this story moved something in you today, minus if it reminded you of a moment when you gave everything and still walked away empty-handed, only to discover later that the walking away was the beginning minus, then please like this video, share it with someone who needs it, leave a comment, and subscribe. Stories like this one only reach the people who need them because of the people who pass them along. And before I go minus, I want to ask you something. Personal, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your country in the comments below. I read them. It matters to me to know that this story crossed whatever distance it needed to in order to find you. The photo is still on my phone. I have not deleted it. Not because it still hurts minus it doesn't. Not the way it once did minus, but because it reminds me that the most unexpected things sometimes carry the most important messages. She thought she was sending me a wound. She sent me a window instead, and I climbed through it. That is the whole story, and that is enough.